The secret to no longer derailing your efforts is to concede that you possess almost no authority over your circumstances. You are going to learn a simple filtering question employed by a Roman emperor, which helps you stop feeling dispersed and finally create momentum on things you can genuinely alter. This is more than just theory. It's a practical framework from Stoic philosophy known as the dichotomy of control. It functions by drawing a line between what you can shape and what you cannot. When everything seems disorderly, this cognitive sorting is what enables us to recover our concentration. Stay with us, because this one mental adjustment also illuminates why much of our daily worry is ultimately a decision we make. Protocol 1. Regain control by compressing your time frame. You've successfully distinguished what you can influence from what you can't. So why do you still get derailed? The right priorities are known to you, but you seem unable to establish a flow, and your days merge into an indistinct haze. This occurs because our thoughts are perpetually bouncing between past regrets and future anxieties. There's a straightforward technique to halt this. It's about contracting your time frame to encompass only the immediate now. This isn't some abstract philosophical notion. It's a concrete method for reclaiming command. When your attention is narrowed to only what is directly in front of you, the section of your brain that generates unease becomes quiet. This isn't about achieving inner tranquility through meditation. It is a strategic maneuver that liberates the logical portion of your intellect to actively resolve issues rather than simply fretting over them. Employing this very method to govern an empire, the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Each of us lives only now, this brief instant." The rest has been lived already, or is impossible to see. How do you leverage an emperor's mindset when you just feel immobilized? Disregard the massive undertaking. Let go of yesterday's stumble. Ask yourself, what is the one tangible action I can finish within the next 5 minutes? Execute that one task. This is how you stop feeling swamped. It's how you get back in the groove and start to generate genuine forward motion, one tiny, irrefutable step at a time. Protocol 2. Sustain progress by valuing the process. How do you cope when an objective is months down the road and you constantly run out of energy? You begin with force, but the payoff feels impossibly remote, and the daily grind starts to seem meaningless. It's a standard formula for failure we often fall into. There is an alternative viewpoint, with its origins in the Stoic principle of judgment. The concept is uncomplicated. Learn to place more importance on the quality of your effort than on the final result. You might not have power over the ultimate outcome, but you always have authority over your own exertion. The victory is no longer reaching the end. The victory is simply performing the next action. But isn't this simply a psychological gimmick? This is validated by contemporary psychology, which distinguishes between two goal categories: outcome goals and process goals. An outcome is the final trophy. The process is merely the manageable activity you undertake in the present moment. It's been proven that concentrating on the process, the component you command, lessens anxiety and elevates performance by giving you an enhanced sense of control. When this becomes your approach, the act of working begins to create its own gratification. You are no longer just striving for some reward in the distant future. So, stop anticipating the party for completing the marathon. The true triumph is getting your sneakers on for today's jog. Don't hang around waiting for the project's sign-off. Success is found in the dedicated concentration you applied this morning. This is your strategy for forging a string of small, daily triumphs. It is the way you discover your flow and generate unstoppable forward motion, one move at a time. Protocol 3. Transforming failure into forward momentum. What occurs when you adhere to all the guidelines but still come up short? You performed the labor, concentrated on the method, and the venture collapsed all the same. It's natural to feel demoralized and think the entire endeavor was worthless. The instinctive reaction is to oppose the outcome or simply withdraw. There is, however, a third course of action. The Stoics labeled this acceptance. It's not a matter of capitulation. It is a conscious choice to perceive the event not as a barrier, but as an integral part of the journey itself. So how do you make that transition when the failure feels so deeply personal? You do it by changing the question you pose to yourself. It's a reframing technique where you shift from asking, "Why did this occur to me?" to "What can this reveal to me?" You aren't negating the failure, you're excavating it for information. The first question is a snare that leaves you paralyzed. The second is an engine that drives you onward. This provides the foundation for what's known as post-traumatic growth, a phenomenon where you don't simply rebound from hardship, you emerge more resilient because of it. Marcus Aurelius saw this as a universal principle, writing, "Whatever happens to you has been waiting to happen since the beginning of time." It was always a chapter in your narrative. Once you accept this, no effort is ever in vain. Every single setback is transformed into the raw material for your next advance. Protocol 4. Adaptive current. The most effective method for adhering to your strategy involves a readiness to discard it instantly. This concept seems counterintuitive, but it's essential for sustaining your drive when circumstances become turbulent. You recognize the feeling, that internal resistance when a project's timeline shifts or its requirements expand. A wave of unease washes over you, making progress feel difficult. Your motivation wanes, and a sense of instability takes hold. What makes a minor alteration so capable of throwing us off course? The actual issue isn't the change itself, but rather the inflexible narrative you cling to about the expected outcome. Your mind is neurologically conditioned to favor predictability. Consequently, when a strategy falls apart, your brain stubbornly replays the initial design instead of adjusting to the present situation. This mental resistance is what professionals identify as cognitive inflexibility. It's not a weakness of character, but an inherent setting that can provoke anxiety. The focus shifts from safeguarding the plan to securing forward movement. This principle is rooted in a direct countermeasure from the Stoics, known as adaptability. It's not a passive approach. Rather, it's a framework for viewing alterations as a standard component of any endeavor, instead of a danger. Governing an empire plagued by perpetual crisis, the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius offered his perspective on the matter. He saw it this way: frightened of change? Can any vital process take place without something being changed? He grasped a core truth. The objective is not a flawless strategy that shatters when tested, but a durable framework that yields. You cultivate the agility to adjust without breaking your stride once you begin to perceive change as information rather than an interruption. This is the method for discovering your rhythm after the initial route has vanished entirely. Engineering an unbeatable process. Obsessing over the final score is the quickest route to defeat. Yet, that's the exact model a lot of us adopt, particularly in our creative endeavors. Your yardstick for achievement becomes elements beyond your influence: acclaim, revenue, public recognition. When you bind your sense of value to that sort of outside approval, you surrender your own agency. You begin with momentum and then burn out, anticipating an acknowledgement that the universe has no obligation to provide. Your creative output becomes a game of chance, which is an awful foundation for constructing something meaningful. An ancient Stoic principle offers a solution for this, known as discrimination. It's simply a pragmatic framework for making a crucial distinction. On one side of this divide, you place everything within your domain: your exertion, your motives, and the quality of your process. On the other side is all the rest: how the world responds, the final revenue, critical feedback. Those elements are outside your command. The point isn't to become indifferent to the outcome, it's to redefine what victory actually means. Victory is no longer the sale of the artwork. Victory is appearing at your workstation and executing the task with commitment. You cease looking outward for the go-ahead to feel accomplished. Instead, that validation becomes an internal matter, determined solely by the caliber of your input. This is the key to maintaining forward movement, especially during periods when perseverance is a challenge. Such a framework transitions you from a brittle, results-contingent method to a robust one powered by your own actions. You design a contest where your sole adversary is your self-control, and defeat is only possible if you refuse to participate. This is the way you generate genuine traction, regardless of the audience or the final tally. Harnessing slumps for growth. Here's a core secret. The times you feel like you're derailing are frequently the moments generating the most impetus. We are conditioned to view advancement as a linear path. Consequently, an off day, marked by low energy, zero focus, or waning drive, registers as a setback. It isn't. That decline in your output isn't a glitch. It's the actual power source. A physiological principle known as supercompensation underpins this phenomenon. In essence, you don't build strength at the point of exertion, but during the recuperation phase that comes after. You introduce a stressor, a strenuous workout, an intense work block, or the study of a new ability. This induces exhaustion, and your output inevitably wanes. That is your off day. This is where many people make a crucial error. They attempt to resist the downturn and force their way through the exhaustion, which results in burnout. The exhaustion, however, is a cue. The subsequent phase is recuperation. If you permit this process, your body and mind don't just revert to their baseline. They overcompensate, bouncing back to a heightened state of capability to manage the next stressor. This concept applies to everything from gaining physical strength to mastering a new ability. The individual who insists on 3 hours of guitar practice when they feel depleted is fighting the system. They court exhaustion and achieve minimal gains. In contrast, the person who interprets the exhaustion as a cue and pivots to a less demanding session, or even takes a break, often returns the following day to perfect the chord that gave them trouble all week. What does this imply for your own efforts? These downturns are not an indication of failure. They represent the physiological cost of improvement. When you sense your energy is waning, it's not a cue to give up. It's a sign that advancement is occurring. just out of immediate sight. Integrated framework for consistent growth. A system is designed to keep you from derailing in the first place. Rules are what you reach for after you've already strayed from the path. Simply possessing a list of guidelines is not the same as operating with a genuine system. Adaptability is the master framework that emerges when individual principles are combined. The concepts we've explored, mindfulness, judgment, and acceptance, are not merely disconnected tricks. They are integral parts that construct something much bigger. This is the very thing that converts a handful of tactics into a unified engine for consistent growth. Known in modern psychology as psychological flexibility, this skill is simply the capacity to remain present and alter your conduct to support your deep-seated values, particularly when circumstances become challenging. But what's the practical application of this understanding for showing up consistently? Imagine it as the core software governing your awareness. Because you cannot adjust to a reality you fail to perceive clearly, mindfulness becomes essential. It acts like a sensor, the component of the framework that signals the need for a course correction, allowing you to get back on course. However, a sensor becomes pointless if you argue with its feedback. You can't navigate a reality you decline to acknowledge, which is a chief reason you get derailed. Acceptance functions as the crucial portal here. It dismantles your opposition to the actual situation, which in turn unlocks the energy to act constructively instead of being paralyzed. While reacting depletes your resources, responding gives them purpose. So, what guides your new heading once you've acknowledged the need for a pivot? Your judgment serves as the compass. As your specific tactics evolve, it ensures every action remains anchored to your values. In this way, you can generate momentum even when your initial plan is no longer viable. These principles are not a haphazard collection of virtues. They represent the essential elements of a unified framework engineered to ensure progress is lasting. This is more than a conceptual framework. The cycle of pressure and adjustment mirrors the basic principle of biological development. We witness this exact dynamic in the process of supercompensation. Architecture of fulfillment. Let's be clear about one thing. The whole point of this work isn't to arrive at some destination where you get to put your feet up forever. We pursue career advancements and cross finish lines, convinced that contentment is a trophy awarded upon completion. This conventional model is the reason countless individuals begin with enthusiasm only to burn out, feeling disconnected from their own existence. It's a contest that frequently feels hollow, even in victory. Could it be that the whole strategy is mistaken? According to the psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, authentic and enduring fulfillment isn't derived from idle enjoyment. Instead, it arises from a mental state he termed flow. This is the experience of being so deeply immersed in a task that the process itself provides the gratification. This state occurs when your capabilities are precisely aligned with a meaningful challenge. Your objectives are well defined, and you receive instant information about how you're doing. This concept is far from a New Age gimmick. It's the psychological manifestation of putting the ancient Stoic virtue of judgment into practice. Judgment, you'll recall, is the discipline of prioritizing the quality of your own actions, your level of engagement, above any external outcome. When you deliberately find significance in the endeavor itself, flow becomes the organic consequence. It's the sensation that accompanies living by this philosophy. Here, we arrive at a potent conclusion about the true nature of a good life. The objective is not to eradicate all difficulty so you can finally rest. The objective is to organize your existence around endeavors that induce flow. Happiness is not a place you reach, it's a mental state you nurture, one moment at a time. This cultivation happens through the deliberate act of pushing your personal limits. A good life isn't something you discover, it's something you construct. Launching without the urge. The central paradox that ensnares many individuals is this: we believe motivation must precede action, when in reality, the act itself is what generates motivation. This misconception is the very snare that causes procrastination, as you hold out for an emotional state that might never materialize, preventing you from establishing any kind of flow. How then can you begin when you possess absolutely no drive? The dichotomy of control provides the answer, instructing us to distinguish between elements we can affect and those we cannot. You cannot simply will your emotions into existence. Feelings like motivation are not light switches to be toggled on and off, placing them beyond your immediate command. A singular, tangible movement, however, that remains entirely within your sphere of influence. This principle is known in contemporary therapy as behavioral activation. It validates that motivation is the result of action, not its prerequisite. The strategy isn't to wait until you feel prepared. Instead, you execute a small, manageable task. This single step jumpstarts the whole sequence, producing the exact feeling you were anticipating. Here is where the 2-minute rule comes into play. The objective is to identify a minuscule, nearly effortless physical trigger. This is your access point. Your aim isn't completing a 3-mile run, but simply lacing up your running shoes. Your purpose isn't to finish the essay, but merely to open the file. This small act serves as the crucial gateway, shattering inertia and diminishing anxiety by demonstrating the task's feasibility. It's the initial move that enables every subsequent one. Building momentum and regaining your footing is achieved in this manner, not by anticipating an emotion, but by executing one solitary action. A fulfilling life isn't something you discover, it's something you construct, beginning this very moment.